So what if I told you that that incredible emotional breakthrough you felt during your very first yoga or martial arts class wasn't actually a sign of progress?
Oh man, that is a tough pill to swallow.
Right. I mean, what if that overwhelming sense of unity or, that profound physical release was actually a trap? Like a temporary illusion that might be keeping you from making any real lasting changes to your body.
It's a super controversial idea, especially when you think about, well, how much time and money we all spend chasing those exact peak experiences.
Absolutely.
We just naturally assume that if something feels intensely profound on day one, we must be like on the fast track to mastery.
But according to the source material we're unpacking today for this deep dive, we have this completely backward. We are looking at this really fascinating set of notes titled Research Notes, Cognitive Updating in Body Exploration.
Yeah, and it's basically this conceptual framework that completely dismantles our traditional understanding of physical training.
It really does. And I know you, listening to this, you probably hit that wall where you're trying to fix a physical issue and nothing works.
Exactly. These notes draw really heavily from cognitive science, motor learning,
Yeah,
and a concept called interoception, which we will definitely need to get into.
for sure. But the core mission of this whole framework is to explain why mastering a physical discipline, whether that's somatic education or Tai Chi, or honestly, just trying to fix your chronic desk posture, it isn't an engineering problem.
Right. It's not just about the mechanics.
Exactly. It's actually a massive process of cognitive reorganization.
Yeah, because, you hear physical discipline and you automatically think it's about the body.
Obviously, right?
You think, oh, I just need to stretch my hamstrings, strengthen the core, and boom, I've upgraded the hardware. But these notes are suggesting the hardware isn't the issue at all.
Yeah, the bottleneck is actually the software running it.
Right. And to understand why the software is the bottleneck, we have to start with a premise that feels deeply counterintuitive.
Yeah.
The notes basically argue that human beings do not experience their bodies directly.
Yeah, that part was wild to read.
It is. There is this fundamental barrier between physical reality and your conscious experience of it.
I remember reading that line in the notes and literally stopping completely. Because, I mean, as I sit here right now, I can feel my feet on the floor. I can feel the tension in my neck.
Or you feel it.
Right. So I was like, what do you mean I don't experience my body directly? I am feeling it right now.
Well, you're feeling an interpretation. And this is where interoception comes in.
Okay, let's break that down.
So interoception is basically your brain's ability to map the internal state of your body. We're talking things like your heartbeat, digestion, muscle tension, the stretch of your fascia.
Right.
But your brain doesn't just passively receive this data like a live video feed. It actually filters and edits and predicts those sensory signals long before they ever reach your conscious awareness.
So it's essentially a mediation process. Like the brain is stepping in as a middleman.
A very heavy-handed middleman, yeah. Cognitive science shows us that the brain relies really heavily on a process called sensory attenuation.
Sensory attenuation.
Right. Basically, the brain mutes sensory feedback that it predicts or expects, so it doesn't get overwhelmed. Because, if you felt every single thing happening in your body all the time, you'd go crazy.
Oh, totally. It'd be way too much data.
Exactly. So because of this, when you try a new physical practice, your sensitivity to subtle, unfamiliar bodily changes is actually extremely low. Your brain simply doesn't have the map for it yet.
That makes me think of like a bad auto-translate app on your phone.
Oh, I like that.
Right. Like imagine your body's trying to speak this new, highly nuanced language. Let's call it body language.
Okay, body language.
The signals travel up the nervous system, but your beginner brain aggressively runs them through this clunky auto-translate app, forcing the new message into a vocabulary it already understands.
Yes, and let's take that metaphor even further. It's not just translating poorly, it's actively using predictive text that refuses to learn new words.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
When a beginner is told to perform a complex movement, human cognition naturally organizes that confusing novel experience into a familiar narrative.
So it's just guessing based on old habits.
Right. So if your body says, hey, release the tension in the thoracic spine, your brain's predictive text might just overwrite that and say, oh, I know what that means. Slump the shoulders forward.
Because slumping the shoulders is literally the only version of releasing tension that the brain's current map has access to.
Exactly.
The translation is entirely distorted.
And this distortion leads to a massive problem in practice. Because physical change in the body and your cognitive ability to recognize that change are two completely different processes.
Wait, say that again?
Physical change and recognizing that change are different. If your brain is translating a highly refined physical technique through an old, flawed cognitive map, you aren't actually learning the new technique.
You're literally just doing your old habits while wearing a Tai Chi outfit.
Yes, exactly. The notes emphasize this really heavily. Any method, no matter how historically refined or biomechanically perfect it is, can be unconsciously distorted by the practitioner to fit their pre-existing perceptual habits.
That is so frustrating.
It is. You think you're executing the new posture, but neurologically, you're just firing the exact same old pathways under a new label.
Which, okay, this brings us to the most infuriating part of taking any kind of movement class.
Oh, I know where this is going.
You know what I'm talking about. You hit a wall, you know something is wrong, and your teacher just looks to you and gives that classic, annoying cliche.
Just keep practicing?
Yes. Just keep practicing,
Yeah.
and you will understand. I mean, I used to think that was just a mystical brush-off.
Yeah.
Like they didn't actually know how to teach.
Well, it certainly feels like a dismissal when you're desperate for a mechanical fix. But if we accept that the beginner's brain is a flawed translator, like we were just saying, that cliche actually reveals itself as a deliberate educational tool.
A tool.
Well, we naturally demand highly detailed conceptual explanations when we start something new. We want the exact angle of the pelvis, the precise muscle to engage.
Because, as someone who loves to learn, I want the instruction manual. If I'm paying for a class, I want the teacher to break down the biomechanics so I can just apply them.
But think about the mechanism of motor learning. If a teacher gives you a highly detailed biomechanical explanation, your brain is forced to process those complex verbal instructions through your existing flawed cognitive framework.
So the words actually make it worse.
The verbal instructions frequently strengthen your misconceptions. Let's look at a concrete example from the text. Say a yoga teacher tells a beginner, tuck your tailbone and engage your lower core.
Pretty standard instruction.
Right. The beginner's brain searches its internal database for tucking and engaging. If that person's lifelong habit is to clench their lower back whenever they try to stabilize their pelvis, they will simply clench their lower back harder.
Oh, man. So they will physically reinforce the error while consciously believing they are following the instruction perfectly.
Exactly. And because of sensory attenuation, they won't even feel the lower back clenching.
Because they're so used to it.
Yes. Their brain mutes that sensation because it's so habitual. This is why the notes argue against early, detailed explanations. It isn't about being vague just for the sake of mystery. It's a strategy to prevent what the researchers call premature cognitive fixation.
Premature cognitive fixation.
Yeah.
Meaning you lock in an intellectual understanding of the pose before you have the bodily awareness to actually execute it.
Precisely.
But I mean, I have to push back on this a little bit on behalf of everyone listening, because it still sounds like a convenient excuse for bad teachers who just don't know how to explain things.
That's a fair critique.
Right. Because if a teacher doesn't step in and verbally correct my form, aren't I just going to flail around and potentially injure myself?
Well, there is a vital distinction here between a safety correction and a perceptual instruction.
Okay, what's the difference?
A good teacher will absolutely stop you from hyperextending a knee or putting weight on a fragile joint. That's safety. But beyond immediate safety, a true master is waiting for your nervous system's resolution to improve.
Oh, okay.
They withhold the detailed how-to because they know the goal isn't for you to merely mimic a shape. The goal is total cognitive reorganization.
So you literally cannot logic your way into understanding the technique. You just have to wait until your brain builds a high-resolution map capable of perceiving the signals correctly.
It requires immense patience. Over time, as your nervous system adapts through repetitive, gentle exposure, those earlier instructions that seem totally vague suddenly become self-evident through direct bodily experience.
So the physical shape of the body didn't magically change overnight.
No. The way your brain processes the sensory data from your body changed.
Which totally shifts how we view progress.
Yeah.
But it also introduces a massive trap. And this is where we get back to that intense first-class experience we talked about at the very beginning.
Yes, the peak experience.
If true understanding takes years of withholding explanation and slowly updating the cognitive map, what on earth is happening when someone goes to a weekend meditation retreat and claims they had this like life-altering physical breakthrough.
We see this constantly, right? Beginners often report temporary, overwhelming states very early in a practice. The notes list a variety of these, actually. Deep muscular relaxation, feelings of lightness, sudden altered breathing, intense emotional release, crying on the yoga mat, or even a profound sense of unity.
Yeah, it's like getting a runner's high, but in your very first week of somatic movement, it feels incredibly profound. You walk out of the studio feeling like you're floating on a cloud and you think, I did it. I have achieved enlightenment. I am a master of the form.
Right, and those experiences are genuinely real, and they hold a lot of personal meaning. But the conceptual framework warns that we fundamentally misinterpret them.
How so?
Short-term peak experiences do not indicate that the intended perceptual learning, the actual rewiring of your cognitive map, has occurred.
It makes me think of the difference between a sugar rush and deep, sustainable nutrition.
Oh, that's a great way to look at it.
If you eat a massive slice of cake, you get this immediate, intense spike in energy. It feels real, it feels powerful, and if you didn't know anything about biology, you might think, wow, this is the ultimate fuel.
Right.
But a sugar rush doesn't build muscle tissue. It doesn't sustain bone density. It's just a temporary systemic shock.
And the physiology behind early peak experiences and physical practices is very similar to a systemic shock. Novelty itself is a powerful trigger.
Just doing something new.
Yeah. If you change a beginner's breathing pattern dramatically, you alter the carbon dioxide levels in their blood, which can easily induce lightheadedness, tingling, or emotional release. If you stretch a muscle group that has been tight for a decade, like the hips, you send a massive jolt to the parasympathetic nervous system.
Wow. So you aren't actually experiencing a permanent cognitive update. You're just experiencing the biological novelty of doing something weird with your body.
Exactly. And the danger is that these short-term experiences are incredibly easy to induce. I mean, a charismatic teacher can guide a room full of beginners into a state of emotional catharsis in 45 minutes.
Sure.
But long-term cognitive updating occurs much, much more slowly.
Which means intensity of experience is not equivalent to depth of cognitive change.
I would carve that sentence into stone for anyone starting a physical practice. Chasing the intensity of a quick emotional release can actually distract you from the real work.
Because you're just looking for the next hit.
Yes. If you constantly seek that sugar rush, you will abandon the practice the moment it gets quiet and tedious, which is exactly when the actual neurological rewiring begins.
The notes highlight this beautifully. Real reorganization requires a very specific, almost tedious cognitive attitude over a period of years. It requires sustained observation.
And sustained observation is incredibly difficult for the modern brain. It means paying close attention to the sensory data of your body without immediately jumping to conclusions about what it means. It requires a reduction of premature interpretation.
Which basically means turning off the auto-translate app.
Yes, exactly.
When you feel a twinge in your shoulder during a movement, you don't instantly say, oh, my shoulder's tight. You just observe the sensation of the twinge. You cultivate this radical openness to changing your own understanding of your body.
You are suspending the desire for an immediate payoff. True cognitive reorganization isn't driven by fireworks. It's driven by continuous, quiet repetition. And the timescale for this varies wildly from person to person, but it generally takes years.
But this long, tedious process of rewiring perception begs a massive question. If the goal isn't just physical repetition, then what exactly is a master teacher doing differently?
That's the real question.
Right. Because sectioning out everything we've talked about, it can't just be about demonstrating a perfect high kick or a flawless downward dog.
No, the definition of mastery completely flips under this framework. It is no longer about a teacher passing down mechanical secrets. If we look at great masters across historical traditions, they designed methods that often seem bizarre or counterintuitive at first, but possess a profound hidden internal logic.
The methods are basically Trojan horses.
I love that, yes.
The notes mention that practitioners eventually reach a point, maybe 5 or 10 years in, where they finally say, oh, now I understand why the exercises were arranged in this exact order. Now I understand why doing this seemingly pointless micro-movement 1,000 times mattered so much.
Right, because the physical training was just a vehicle for reshaping perception.
That makes so much sense.
But recognizing that internal logic requires a specific type of teaching, which explains another crucial point in the sources. Exceptional practitioners are not automatically exceptional teachers.
Really? Just because you're good at it doesn't mean you can teach it.
Exactly. A virtuoso performer might have a highly evolved perceptual map, but that doesn't mean they know how to navigate the cognitive bottlenecks of a beginner.
Because being able to execute the technique physically doesn't mean you know how to reverse engineer someone else's flawed internal translation system.
Precisely. A true master teacher is constantly assessing the student's internal landscape. They aren't looking at the external shape of the pose, they are looking at what the learner is currently capable of perceiving.
Oh, I see.
They have to constantly evaluate, you know, which explanations would be useful right now and which would just trigger the student's habitual movement patterns. What specific physical constraint can I give them that will naturally force their perceptual map to update without me having to say a word?
It's like playing three-dimensional chess with someone else's nervous system. The master isn't the person who perfectly executes the move. They're the person whose brain acts as a perfectly self-updating operating system.
The ultimate goal of any deep physical exploration is not the mastery of a specific technique. The technique is a disposable tool. The actual goal is the development of a perceptual system capable of continuous real-time self-correction.
So when you reach that level of mastery, what happens to the method? Do you just keep doing the same rigid exercises forever?
Well, when perception becomes truly adaptive, the rigid rules of the method actually begin to fall away. You don't need the strict step-by-step technique anymore because your relationship to your physical self has transformed. The body is no longer a clumsy object that your brain must consciously try to steer and control.
It becomes an active source of learning. You aren't doing the method on your body is teaching you how to move, moment by moment.
You learn directly from ongoing interaction with the physical world. The barrier we talked about at the beginning, the sensory attenuation, the flawed translation, all of that has been refined. The cognitive map finally matches the physical territory.
Man, let's just take a breath and recap this incredible journey for you listening.
It's a lot to take in.
It is. We started with the universal frustration of trying to learn a new physical skill, hitting a wall and being told to just keep practicing. But what we've uncovered is that body exploration is actually a profound reorganization of how your brain perceives reality.
We examine how the brain mediates our experience through interoception and sensory attenuation, acting as this flawed translator that distorts raw physical data to fit old narratives.
We decoded the genius of withholding instruction, realizing that detailed explanations often trigger premature cognitive fixation, reinforcing our worst neurological habits.
We separated the biological novelty of early peak experiences, that temporary sugar rush, from the slow, quiet, long-term reality of true cognitive updating.
And finally, we redefined what it means to be a master. It isn't about flawless execution. It's about building a perceptual operating system that continuously self-corrects, allowing the body to become an active teacher.
And it is really important to note for you listening that the sources we've explored today represent a conceptual framework. This is a model for exploration, hypotheses drawn from personal observation, motor learning, and cognitive science. It is not a definitive scientific theory.
Right.
Rather, it's a powerful lens through which to view your own physical practice.
But what a lens it is. It completely validates why the deepest achievements require time, patience, and a willingness to simply stop interpreting our sensations prematurely.
It really asks us to get comfortable in the unknown and to trust the slow process of biological adaptation.
Which brings us to a final, lingering thought for you to take away today.
Yeah.
If our brain acts as this heavy-handed editor for all our physical sensations, if it's constantly predicting what we feel rather than actually feeling it, how much of your everyday physical discomfort, your clumsiness, or that chronic tension you carry in your lower back is just a stubborn cognitive habit?
Are you actually tight, or is your brain simply running a decade-old predictive algorithm that perceives that area as tight?
And if you stopped trying to aggressively fix it like a broken piece of hardware, if you stopped forcing an explanation and just started observing the sensation with patience, what might your body teach you today?